Alright, today we're going to take a look at stage one, identifying the desired results of understanding by design. So as we take a look at this today, we want to take a look at achieving two outcomes. First, we want the participants to understand the four components of identifying desired results, and then participants will understand the focus of those big ideas when identifying the desired results. So again, as we talked about before, there are three stages when you're talking about backward design. You have identifying your desired results, which we're going to take a look at today, and then you have determining acceptable evidence, and then after you achieve those first two steps, then you get into the planning learning experiences and instruction. So when you're taking a look at this, you're really looking at four components of identifying desired results. First, you have to think about your content standards, looking at what are the actual standards that you need to teach for the students to achieve. And then you want to take a look at what is the knowledge and skills that the students need to be successful as you're taking a look at this. And then you want to know what are the understandings that the students need so that they can be successful. And then lastly, you want to think about what are the essential questions. And with your essential questions, those are going to get into that idea of big ideas. Your essential questions aren't those small things that you ask throughout the class, like when did the Civil War start? Your essential questions are going to get to those big overarching ideas. So when you're thinking about identifying your desired results, you really need to go in and you need to think about the big picture. So you really need to establish your priorities. So when you're taking a look at something that's worth being familiar with, it's not something that's essential, but you're going in and you're taking a look at, you know what, this is important, this would be nice if the kids know this. And then the next piece is taking a look at what's really important for the kids to know and to be able to do while you're looking at your units. And then the last thing is, this is the most central part. The kids have to know this. And those other things are going to fall into place. So you're worth being familiar with. Those are those types of things that they're just going to come up as you're going through your units, going through your lessons. But it's not something that you're going to spend an entire activity focused on that small piece, or spend a whole lot of time on it. And then when you get into your, you know what, this is important, because I think the kids should be able to know this, and there's something that I think the kids should be able to do. But again, it's not something that you're going to spend a lot of time on, but your enduring understanding is saying, this is the big take-home piece. This is what the kids have to know by the time that they leave. So you're establishing those things in your curriculum as you're going through. Where do they fall in here? So if you think about when you're planning your learning activities later on, how much time am I going to spend on it? So when you're taking a look at stage one here, you want to think about what are the content standards that are addressed explicitly by the unit. And those are those types of things that you want to make sure that you are addressing. And then you want to get in and you want to take a look at what should the students know and be able to do. And again, when you're taking a look at your curriculum is going to help give you some guidance in this when you're taking a look at it. And then your enduring understandings. These are what specific insights about big ideas do we want the students to leave with. So these are the things that we don't want the students to forget. This is that central piece that they absolutely have to know this if they're going to be successful within your unit. And then once you've got that big idea, then you go in and you think about what essential questions will frame the teaching and learning, pointing towards the key issues, ideas, and suggest that meaningful and provocative inquiry into the content. So these are the ones that you have your open-ended questions that get to that big idea, where everything kind of revolves around this. So when you're looking at a unit on the Civil War, you're going in, you're not looking at, you want to look at the big picture, the big idea. So you might have an essential question, might be something like, was Lincoln a defender or destroyer of the Constitution? And then your individual lessons that pile onto that might be some of those things like the Emancipation Proclamation, writ of habeas corpus, and how he dealt with those types of things. But the big take-home question, that big idea was, how was he following the Constitution with those actions that he took during the Civil War? So the big thing to remember is your standards are your building codes. You need to unpack the standards. Everything needs to be revolved around the standards. And then when you're looking at your standards, as you're unpacking them, remember that your key nouns reflect the big ideas, and your key verbs are going to suggest important tasks that the students are going to do. So are they analyzing something? Are they examining something? And your nouns are going to reflect those big ideas. Is it the Constitution? So looking at those types of things. So, and then always remember that your essential questions, knowledge, and skills are driven by your standards. So you have to start with your standards when you're thinking about what are the desired results that I want my kids to get out of this. So when you're looking at your big ideas are the ones that add that lasting value with that transfer to other inquiries. So it's what you want the kids to remember, what you want them to put into their long-term memory, something that's going to come up later in the course and they need that information, or something that can transfer over to other content areas. So the key concept is for making important facts, skills, and actions more connected, coherent, meaningful, and useful. So you have your key concept, and you want to be able to get those important facts, but you want to make sure that they're connected, coherent, meaningful, and useful. So think about some of those lessons and some of the activities that we have the students do. Do they fit in with all of the criteria here? And then they epitomize the core, not the basic insights, but the core of what you want the students to achieve. And that's going to help you identify what those big ideas are. So a couple of questions to help you identify what the truly big ideas are. So first, do you have to dig deep to really understand its meaning and the implications, even if you just have a surface grasp of it? So what you're talking about here is you're going in and you want them to be able to dig deep. But the question that I posed earlier about Lincoln, destroyer, defender of the Constitution, that's not something where you're just going in and you're just looking at the surface of the Constitution. Well, it says this. We're looking at what the Emancipation Proclamation says, but to have a true grasp of it, understanding what's in that Emancipation Proclamation and how it fits in with that larger question of defender or destroyer of the Constitution. So you've really got to dig deep in to understand the Emancipation Proclamation to really be able to answer that essential question. And then when you're thinking about determining the big ideas for the unit or course, you want to ask yourself a couple of questions. Why? So what? Why is this important? Why is this important for the kids to learn this? What is the moral of the story? How is blank applied to the world beyond your classroom? So when you're thinking about some of those types of things that you're doing, is it really important for the students to know who the general was in the Battle of Gettysburg? Or are you looking at what's the moral of the story that we're learning about the Battle of Gettysburg? How can this be applied beyond the classroom? Is it just about the maneuvers that the generals did, or does it come down to other things like decisions that were made by the generals? What were the lasting impacts of some of the things that happened during the Battle of Gettysburg? So you're getting in deeper and you're looking at some of those types of things. And then, what couldn't we do if we didn't understand something? Would we be able to still answer questions if we didn't have this piece of information? So really what it comes down to is your big ideas are not your truism, facts, and definitions. It's how those things are applied. So what is understanding? So we really need to know what understanding is to dig into this. So understanding is explaining or showing why and how. It's not just about giving a definition, but how is that definition applied to something that you're learning. You want something that's insightful use of knowledge and skill, observable in performance. You want the kids drawing key inferences and constructing meaning independently. And then essential question, it's essential for that recall and that transfer of content to new situations. So you can see that this isn't going to be achieved through getting the facts. That's not the true understanding, just knowing the facts and the dates of things, but getting deeper into it so that they can draw those inferences. Why did the South lose the Battle of Gettysburg? And they get that from drawing out those different pieces of information that they learn so that they can construct that meaning. It's not about the teacher telling them what the meaning is or what the impacts of the Battle of Gettysburg was, but it's the students to be able to construct that meaning on their own. So when you're thinking about your essential questions, what you're really looking at, is it arguable and is it important to argue about? It really gets at the heart of the subject. It raises more questions and it provokes an engaged inquiry. So you have something it's debatable. It can be argued, and it's something that's important to argue. And then it can raise more important conceptual or philosophical issues and can provide a purpose for learning. Essential questions oftentimes don't have a correct answer. When you ask that essential question, was Lincoln a defender or destroyer of the Constitution, you can argue both ways on that. And it might raise more questions and get the kids talking about other things. And then it can raise that important conceptual philosophical issue when you're looking at defender or destroyer of the Constitution. A lot of students are going to look and say, well, he helped end slavery. That's important, but yeah, maybe he did go against the Constitution a little bit. So it's getting to some of those philosophical issues. So you really get the kids digging deep when you ask those types of questions. So when you're thinking about essential questions, it's important to differentiate the difference between an essential question and a leading question. So when you're taking a look at this, essential is it's asked to be argued, where a leading question is asked to remind or prompt recall. Essential is designed to uncover new ideas, views, lines of argument, whereas a leading question is just simply designed to cover knowledge. And then with your essentials, you're setting up inquiry heading to new understandings, and your leading questions are those that are pointing to a single straightforward fact. It could be a rhetorical question. So when you're getting in and you're talking about battles in the Civil War, you want to know, maybe an essential question related around this was, what was the main factor that led to the winning or losing of different battles in the Civil War? Where a leading question is going to be a single straightforward answer, where it's who won this battle. Where an inquiry question is like, what was a factor that led to the winning of this battle? So you have those types of things, so it can open things up. It's not a single recall type of question. So your essential questions are open-ended, thought-provoking, intellectually challenging. You have the higher order questioning, and they may raise additional questions, and then they have to require support and justification for their answers. So when you're looking at your essential questions, here are a couple of examples of essential questions. What is the relationship between force and motion? What does the way a culture wages war say about the culture's values? So if you go back and you look at essential questions again, those are open-ended questions. They require thought and they require support and justification. So again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like help setting this up, you can contact me at geol@bcps.org.